Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. It's been an active week in regards to severe weather and just active weather in general. Thankfully, things will be a good bit more calm today compared to the last several days, but there is a couple areas we need to get a little bit more detailed on and watch as we get later into this morning, into the afternoon, evening hours. So we'll do that as we're breaking down today's forecast. After we get done doing that, we will speak on what's to come pattern-wise. We'll spend a good bit of time on that this morning. I'll be for the back half of the video. There'll be a timestamp up for that. So if you're not interested in today's weather, certainly jump ahead and utilize those timestamps for the back half of the video. But we'll get pretty detailed on it. We're going to talk about temperatures, the temperature outlook. We'll speak on any other storm systems to watch for the foreseeable future, and just a pattern in general. We'll try to certainly explain things in a weather way where you guys, the audience, could understand. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is what we're dealing with. We got a lot of energy. We got rain up here in the northern sections of the country. This is a cooler rain. In fact, based off radar, it says that some of this is mixing with some wet snow in areas of the Dakotas. So if you live up here, let me know what you're actually seeing on falling from the sky to the ground up here. I would love to know. You guys know I love snow, but we do got just a surge of cooler rain moving into areas of the upper Midwest. Definitely a rainy start in like Green Bay, and pretty much the entire state of Wisconsin. Just about big surge of moisture moving into areas of the Mid-Atlantic, into the southern tier of New York, and it'll eventually overspread into areas of New England, more areas of New England over time. And we do have some showers and storms spreading across areas of the southeast this morning. Nothing severe at this moment. That could change as we get into the afternoon hours, but some stormy conditions across areas of the southeast. In fact, we had some storms at my house here in central South Carolina early this morning, but some of these storms continue to be pretty strong in areas of Georgia, Alabama, even up into, say, northeast North Carolina. A little bit of flow, promoting a little bit of energy across the Rockies into the Central Plains. Outside that, the central to western U.S. is pretty quiet this morning. Watches, warnings, and advisories. One thing that is surprising me this morning is that the fact that we don't have widespread flood watches across the southern tier of New England, southern New England, just New England in general, as we are going to have a low pressure that's going to strengthen, almost kind of nor'easter-like, off the coast of New England over the next 24 hours and just bring a huge push of moisture into this area. So I'm honestly pretty surprised there's no flood watches up here, but we do have flood watches in areas of PA, West Virginia, and Maryland, and a few counties in Virginia for really what's ongoing right at this second with heavy rain surging on through. We got some heat advisories across Southern California, but man, there's not a whole lot going on this morning as far as watches, warnings, and advisories. So that's good. We're waking up to a quieter morning compared to the last several mornings. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, there is a couple areas that now have a slight risk, unfortunately, but I really don't anticipate anything significant today. One area to watch, well, there's a few areas to watch, but one is eastern sections of North Carolina that have a slight risk for a higher end tornado threat. There's a marginal risk up here in the Ohio Valley down into portions of West Virginia. I'm going to zoom into this area. I think that this has a chance to uptrend to a slight risk in this region. Going to probably get a strong to severe storm risk down here in southern Georgia and the Panhandle and northern areas of Florida for later this morning into this afternoon. There is a risk of some strong storms in deep South Texas. And then we got to watch this area here across southern Missouri and northern Arkansas into a very small section of Kansas and Oklahoma also. Could have some storms that could produce some very large hail in this area. And I wouldn't say very large, just large hail. But I would say short-range model guidance, really not liking the idea of widespread storms in this region, but it's just guidance. And so it's not going to tell us exactly what's going to happen, but we will talk about this region also. But what's driving all this tornado risk? There is a 5% risk of a tornado for areas of extreme eastern North Carolina, including the Outer Banks. I do expect a few supercells to develop in this area later this afternoon, and it could be kind of early in the afternoon, kind of just after lunchtime. We'll zoom into this area when we get to this region. But as far as damaging winds, we'll zoom back out. The wind threat today, not super high. A couple areas, all these marginal risk areas and slight risk areas have a 5% risk of damaging winds. And then the hail threat, a couple areas to watch, 15% risk in this area, 15% risk in that area of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The risk of flash flooding, we do have a moderate risk for really what's going on right now with a surge of rain moving in across areas of PA, Maryland, and West Virginia, where we have those flood watches currently in place. So I'll zoom into that region, Pittsburgh down to Morgantown. You guys, 15% risk of flash flooding occurring. Now, one thing I'm going to start trying to incorporate and trying to put in these videos, even if it's not active, is the National Hurricane Center outlooks. And this is the first morning I've done it since, I believe, last year. So the good news is no tropical cyclone development activity is expected over the next 7 days. So, I mean, it's May. Things are normally quiet out here. But if we do normally get any kind of development in this time of the year, it's typically in the Gulf or the Caribbean or off the coast of the Southeast, where we can just have some frontal boundaries that sort of sag into the region and stall out, and then we can get lower pressure that develops into something tropical, but not expecting anything like that for the foreseeable future. But did just want to show you guys this. We'll start to see this more and more over the next several weeks into the coming months, but thankfully nothing going on right now. The Southeast, we'll take a broad look at things, and we'll take it to about midday. Some storms in eastern North Carolina, some storms in southern Georgia and the panhandle of Florida, and a little bit of storm activity also in southern areas of Louisiana. I wouldn't be surprised if they introduce a marginal risk down here for a few strong to severe thunderstorms. Right now, there's no severe risk, just a general risk of thunderstorms, but they might put that marginal risk down here for southeast Louisiana. But we continue to move forward here, and we take into the overnight hours, and there are those storms that could surge through this region here in southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. We'll talk more on that here in a second. But we take it into tomorrow morning and just some areas of rain moving through Tennessee. But just to zoom in to say the panhandle of Florida here, there is, I would say we could get a couple tornado warnings in this area today. Still just enough overlapping ingredients in place. But early this afternoon, you see those storms near Panama City up to Tallahassee. Anybody in between could get some storms here in the panhandle today. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Some storms just cruising across the panhandle of Florida into northern sections of the state. And then by the time we move into later in the evening and eventually into the overnight hours, things should simmer on down. So, but I do want to watch my friends here and family here in North Carolina. We do have some rain and storms surging through right now. This will continue through about midday. Then we'll get a clearing. And you see these cells here sort of well east of Greenville into the Outer Banks area and just extreme eastern and coastal areas of North Carolina. I'm telling you, right before this energy exits the coastline, the Carolina coastline, I do think we could have a few supercells that could pop off a tornado or two in this area. Don't let it surprise you. If you live in these areas in North Carolina today, I'm telling you, early to mid-afternoon is a time frame to watch, and then this energy should move on through. Could have some storms up in West Virginia and Western Virginia today, but just watch out for those storms early this afternoon. And then as we get into this evening, maybe some additional storm development could get going in eastern Virginia, eastern North Carolina, but I think by this time some drier air will be moving in that will kind of not promote severe weather. But up here in the Northeast, an interesting scenario unfolding as we have a deepening low in place. A lot of rain. This is until about 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon. We'll move into the southern tier of New York, the Finger Lakes, some rain showers across eastern PA, New Jersey, the Tidewater and Delmarva area. And then we'll get some storms that'll fire up really close to a surface low right in here. And I really think we'll get an upgrade to a slight risk with these storms in Ohio, maybe a little bit into northern West Virginia, and then eventually into western PA. Some storms could fire here, and they could be quite intense, maybe a higher end damaging wind threat, and I certainly think there'll be a tornado risk with this. But as we're moving here in time, a lot of this energy will simmer on down, calm down. We'll just get a whole lot of rain as we're getting into the evening hours. This rain all the way up to New York, down to PA, down into the Tidewater. And then as we are getting into the middle of the night, rain takes over New York. Long Island starts to slip into southern New England. And then we just get this big spinning upper low. And we could get a developing low pressure on sort of the right area of this upper low, this trough, if you will. Surface low tries to develop. And this could provide a huge surge of moisture into southern New England as we are getting into tomorrow morning and just basically the next 24 hours after. And what's interesting is the ARRR model is trying to throw some heavy wet snow in the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, even the Berkshires. And, you know, this is interesting. I want to see if this actually happens. Robin, you're certainly going to have to let me know here in southern areas of Vermont, but this is almost a nor'easter type setup, except, it's not going to be that intense, but this is sort of what we were missing all winter if you're certainly a big time winter storm fan in New England. But this will still be ongoing late tomorrow night. So just wanted to extend this a little bit past today's forecast. This will be an interesting day in New England. Not really being talked about much unless you live in New England and you're a weather fan. But upper low spinning here. Surface low develops around the upper low and then gets thrown into New England. Very interesting setup tomorrow. But a closer look at Ohio. This is around 10 a.m. this morning. So we're starting to get to about midday. Some storms could fire in central Ohio. And I'm telling you, listen, marginal risk in place, but we could get an upgrade to a slight risk. Columbus, points east, these storms could begin to get pretty intense. I would say all hazards are on the table with this. It's just a lower end threat of all hazards. So nothing compared to the last several days of severe weather chances. But this is 3 p.m. Watch out, Canton, Akron, down up to Youngstown, Cleveland. Storms surge through sometime in the afternoon hours, and they could hit the northern panhandle of West Virginia, Wheeling, and then eventually they're going to move into PA. And then just some scattered downpours behind it. And here's a closer look at PA, getting past all this morning rain. And eventually we get this clearing. And then look at these storms. Pittsburgh, 4 to 5 o'clock. Grove City, Erie, maybe eventually into this evening. And then I do think this will eventually weaken and fall apart. But I'm telling you, some storms could be ongoing, could be quite intense in eastern Ohio and western areas of PA and northern West Virginia. For later this morning, really into this afternoon. Things should begin to calm down in these areas this evening. Now, the south central U.S., I'm not going to zoom into Missouri or Arkansas. What I'll tell you guys is watch out for some storms in southern Louisiana. Watch out for some storms down here in the far southern areas of Texas. We could get a line of storms that sweeps through. This is for later this evening, into the overnight hours, and just a little bit of flow that really gets going. It's 04Z Thursday, so this is a late tonight into the overnight hours. We could just get enough flow in this region, enough cooler air aloft around to promote a hail threat with some of these storms that are rumbling through extreme southeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma, southern Missouri, and northern Arkansas. Lapse rates will support cooler air aloft, will support some hail with these storms. So just be careful with this into the overnight hours. I don't anticipate any kind of significant severe weather with this. North central U.S., interesting weather days also. We already talked about Ohio. But as we are starting to get, say, into this afternoon, just a lot of rain spinning around, just an annoying cooler rain that's keeping your temperatures down. This is late afternoon. We got just rain showers throughout the Dakotas and southern areas of Minnesota. The western and southern areas of Wisconsin, rain still hanging out with us in lower Michigan. And as we're starting to get into tomorrow, I think that we'll have to deal with it again, but most of the energy will begin to shift further to the east. But tomorrow is going to be another day of this, say, in lower Michigan down into areas of the Midwest. So the western U.S., it's a pretty quiet day of weather. Watch for some storms in maybe western Nebraska. Eastern Colorado, I think we could get a storm or two in this region, but the rest of the time frame looks pretty chill. Temperatures Cooler in the northeast, a lot of cloud cover, a lot of rain. But there's going to be a pretty sharp temperature boundary somewhere in southern Virginia where you go from the 50s maybe to the 70s and 80s, and then it gets downright hot and humid into the southeast. Southern tier of the country, the deep south, 70s and 80s. We got this pocket of cooler air because of the rain and cloud cover from this upper low. And it'll be very hot in Texas today, warming on up, 80s and 90s. And then the western U.S., around average, nothing extreme one way or the other. So, speaking more on temperatures, so let's go on and speak on the days to come. This is the 6 to 10 day outlook, and folks, this takes us from the 26th of May through the 30th. I think, and we're going to speak on the days leading up to the 26th because what is it? It's the 21st right now, so of course we got 5 days up into this time frame. This pattern will be settling in up to this point, so we're not going to just skip the next 5 days in front of us. We're going to speak on that too, but kind of giving you guys a 6 to 14 day outlook temperature-wise and pattern-wise. The blue colors you see on your screen, this is where the Climate Prediction Center is going for below average temperatures, at least a percent chance of it. The darker blue, that is a 60% chance of temperatures being below normal. This is a 50, this is lighter shade 40, and this is a 33% chance. Kind of the grayed out area just could swing one way or the other. And of course, the warmer colors, the reds and the oranges, this is where you have higher confidence of above average temperatures. And Florida, unfortunately, you're not going to get much of this cooler air. This trough is just going to be throwing a bunch of return flow across this area of the country. So the 8 to 14 day outlook, and guys, this takes us well into a few days into May. Into June. So this goes from the 28th of May through the 3rd of June. Below average temperatures still hanging around with us. And the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, down to the mid to deep south, and areas of the central to southern Mississippi River Delta region and valley area. So this pattern is going to stick around for a while. Now, folks, it's May into June. Don't think that below average temperatures is a risk of frost and freezes in this area or snow. It's a different ball game. We're in May, we're in June, we're starting to get to the early stages of summer. So don't relate these bluer colors to snow and stuff like that. I know most people aren't, but just want to throw that out there. And if you look at temperatures compared to average between now, well, this is between actually Saturday midday, the 24th, through the 3rd of June. And this is the Euro Ensemble, one of the best things in the world that you can look at model-wise. And this is temperature anomalies. So this is temperatures compared to average on an ensemble run. In that bluer area, that's anywhere from a few degrees below average in this time frame to 7-8 degrees below average. And for example, if your average high temperatures for this time of the year is 84 degrees, then maybe you'll have several days just in the upper 70s. Now, one thing that I try to explain, and it's a little bit more difficult to explain, is just because you have cooler than average temperatures, that does not mean this is going to be some cool spring or fall crisp air mass. In some cases, it will. But you got to remember that rain, storms, just cloudiness, keep your temperatures down too. And when you have rain normally in the summer, especially the further south you get, the more humid it normally is. So, for example, you're thinking, man, highs in the 70s in Nashville, that sounds phenomenal for late May or early June. It does right off the dot, but are you going to end up getting like dew points in the 60s with that? That doesn't feel quite as good anymore. It still feels decent, but just remember that. For example, here I live in Columbia. Look at the 10-day forecast from our locals and even the Weather Channel app. It has just a huge stretch of days with temperatures with highs in like the 80s and lows in the 60s, even a couple nights in the upper 50s. Phenomenal, right? Well, one thing that I immediately look at is most of the low temperatures are in the 60s. That tells me that my dew points are probably not going to be super low, but it could be totally different a couple states to the north. So just remember that. A lot of people probably immediately think below average temperatures, man, fall crisp, spring crisp like air mass. It's not always the case, but for some, it absolutely will be. It just depends on where you live and if you're being impacted by this moist flow. So, like I said, this is between Saturday, the 24th, through June the 3rd, that Tuesday. Pretty much a stretch of below average temperatures will set up for the foreseeable future. Now, what about rainfall in this period? Now, I think we're going to get some storm systems before we hit that day 6 period. But like I said, this is between the 26th and the 30th of May. The pattern supports above average precipitation for the south up into the east coast. But you get into that darker shade of color, that's a 50% chance of precipitation being above normal. That's a 40, that's a 30. And this is kind of just the battle zone here. Drier conditions expected up here because you guys are in the core of the cooler air mass most likely. Now, I mean, it's going to be the coldest up here, but the jet is digging a little bit further south, so you're just not in the main flow of things. Now we go to the 8 to 14 day outlook, and kind of the same look, except a little bit more drier conditions surge south, and this is between the 28th and the 3rd of June. A little bit drier. The possibility of drier conditions surge a little bit south, and the southern tier of the country up the east coast still remains with that slight to moderate risk of above average precipitation chances. So if you look at just one run of the Euro, guys, and what the pattern looks like just at face value, okay? Now, this is just one model run. We've already talked about big-time surface low developing and throwing in a lot of rain for the Northeast. If you missed that, we spent a little bit of time on it in the Northeast timestamp in the video. But after we get this on out the way, what happens after that? I think we're going to have a chance of severe weather across the Central Plains. Now, I know a lot of people are immediately thinking, Mitch, I thought you said the severe weather, it's over. The severe weather isn't over. The chances of significant severe weather, I think we're going to take a break for that for at least a few days. To maybe several days. And so the short-term foreseeable future, I think we're good with these significant severe outbreaks. But things could change dramatically. But you see just the splotches of green and red, as we're getting into Friday afternoon across the Central Plains. Doesn't show a whole lot, but then as we're starting to get into Saturday, could get some storms across the east, west of the Mississippi River. Shows a complex of storms here. What I want you to notice is a lot of this energy is forming off the Rockies and then surging southeast. There's a reason for that. So it forms and then it sort of drifts southeast. And eventually, as we get into this weekend around the 25th, shows a lot of storm activity like Sunday morning across Missouri into areas of southern Illinois, Indiana, western Kentucky, areas that's just been seeing it left and right. But just because you see the storm activity, the splotches of the red, the yellow, the orange, doesn't mean that this is going to be a tornado outbreak. Just could be some normal run-of-the-run late spring, early summer type storm activity. But there is enough flow with this to probably promote a little bit of severe weather. You're going to have a risk of severe weather with any storm activity this time of the year. We start again to Sunday, shows a lot of storm activity across areas of the Mid-South up into the Central Apps. And, this eventually could drop on down into the deep south as we are starting to get into, say, later this weekend. This is late Sunday evening, and eventually sets up a pattern when we start to see a lot of greens, yellows, oranges, and reds down here. And this makes sense if you compare this to the Climate Prediction Center outlook for precipitation. It shows a lot of rain dancing around down here in the deep south. I think we're going to have a pattern that sets up for certainly stormy conditions. Is this going to be a pattern that sets up for some sort of late season severe weather event? Well, this is getting into about the 5 to 8 day range. So, that's a little bit on out in front of us. It could. But it does show just a lot of activity down here, and all of it's really just shunted down to the south. And you're not seeing a whole lot up here. And we start to get into June. This is 10 days out, getting a lot of energy dancing around on the Gulf coastline. Now, this is also a pattern where you have to watch out for some early season tropical action. There's going to be a frontal boundary somewhere down here, more than likely, and you just got to watch for any energy that gets trapped in the Gulf or off the coast of the southeast. So you got to watch for some spin-ups. But, as we're getting into a few days in May, shows a lot of energy just sort of hanging out down the deep south and the southeast. So I do think we're going to enter a wet pattern after we get past the day 6 and 7 day time frame, maybe for the south. I'm watching this pattern, so it's a bit interesting to me. But right now, this is for Friday. There is a marginal risk of severe weather. I could see this uptrending to a slight risk. I could. But if you notice how this is tilting like this, it's kind of going down like that. There's a reason for that. Your flow supports more of a northwest to southeast flow, kind of a northwesterly flow. It's because there's a ridge right in this area. Flow is dipping down like this, troughing's coming down like this, and the flow's kind of going like that. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to show you more of what that means here in a second. But this is day 3. Marginal risk of severe weather across the middle of the country. I could see this going to a slight risk. But we'll see what happens with that. Now, if we go to the day 4, the day 8 time frame, it just says predictability too low from day 4 onward, which is Saturday onward. Now, if you go down here and read this, it talks about how the flow shifts to a more of a zonal flow. And this could support severe weather. If there's flow going across the middle of the country, it could support severe weather, but you really look for that southwesterly flow for more severe weather chances. But, it speaks on, the possibility of severe weather probabilities being warranted, but they're not warranted at this time due to just probably not enough agreement. Now, rainfall between now and the next, say, 7 days looks to be centered over the middle of the country to east central U.S. Kind of these shades of red, that's over 3 to almost 4 inches of rain is possible. So the flow is going to support this area getting hit pretty good. This right here that you're seeing up here, this is mainly for what's going to happen over the next 24 hours in the Northeast. I expect higher rain chances to shift more so down here as we get into late next week, into the following weekend. I think we're going to enter a very active pattern. Now, when I say active, I'm not necessarily meaning widespread, significant, severe weather. I just think we're going to enter a very stormy pattern down here, in my opinion. And this is all caused from this, and this is where we'll nerd out with you guys for a couple minutes. And I'm going to start this for Thursday afternoon. Now, there's a trough, and we're going to get all the way to Friday. There's a trough, the area in blue, that's a trough of low pressure. It's lower pressure. The area is in like whatever color you want to call this, a salmon color, orange color. This is higher pressure. So it makes perfect sense why we have severe weather chances across the Central Plains for Friday when you look at this. So remember, flow around this lower pressure is going just like that. Okay? So basically, all your flow is going to kind of come on top of this ridge and then shoot down like this. So this is why we have severe weather chances really right here in this region for Friday. Flow coming around this trough like this, just like that. You probably got some energy embedded in the actual low pressure itself. Flow kind of coming off this ridge like that. So the flows are pretty much working in tandem at this point. And therefore, you're going to have some flow over the middle of the country that's going to support, enough flow to get some storms going and severe weather chances, obviously. And we're just going to have to watch little short wave pieces of energy that kind of ride across what you could probably call a boundary at this point. Now, we talk a lot more about this stuff that you see on your screen during hurricane season, which is coming on up. So this will make a lot more sense when we're discussing steering currents of tropical systems. But, just discussing the pattern, and this is just the operational Euro. As we start to get into this weekend, we continue to have troughing in place. So this ridge, it kind of gets back over the southeast, but it doesn't stay very long, and we continue to have return flow. It's a little bit of a complex pattern, so flow is still kind of coming back around this way. This is probably bringing some cooler air still across areas of the country, and just sort of weak ridging right here. So we're probably going to have impulses of energy that are kind of riding on top of this ridge and shooting down this way. And if you look at the little squiggly areas of these lines, like right in here, okay, that's where we have energy. So as we are starting to get into next week, more of a zonal flow sets up. Like the Storm Prediction Center says, the Euro is showing. So at this point, not a whole lot of troughing is affecting the region at this, at this time frame, early next week. But as we are starting to get, say, into late next week, about this time next week, another area of low pressure begins to develop. And we have to watch this little feature. Okay? Kind of a tall ridge spiking up here, but things just look kind of weird when you look at it this way. But as we continue to move forward here and we start to get on down the road, like day 10 onward time frame, looks like we have some sort of lower pressure that gets trapped underneath some light ridging to the north, and just lower pressure could just bring a lot of unsettled weather down here to the southeast. But it's a hard pattern to explain somewhat when you're looking at the 500 millibar chart, because nothing is there to really draw lines around and explain it. But anyways, the pattern going forward is going to support some cooler temperatures, but don't think cooler temperatures means that, crisp fall pumpkin spice latte air mass. That's not what it's going to be. For some areas, it will have a few mornings like that, but for the most part, I think this is really going to drive the temperatures to be down because of just an unsettled pattern. But it's a complex pattern to explain. So we'll continue to try to figure it out going forward. And we got to watch these little features down here. See this trapped area of blue? This could get trapped down here, and this is getting on out. I mean, this is into the first couple days of June, so unreliable time frame. But you got to watch these areas of lower pressure to get trapped close to the Gulf, and then off the coast of the southeast. Sometimes they can drift over the warmer bodies of water down here and try to develop some tropical characteristics. So we'll continue to try to figure it out, guys, going forward. But the pattern does support continuous storm activity. It's just you're not seeing any huge areas of blue digging into the western U.S., causing a massive, for example, like this area in blue here, it's not digging down like this, creating a lot of flow over the middle of the country. You're not seeing anything like that. You're just seeing pockets of ridging, pockets of troughing, and just kind of a weird pattern out there with just different areas of low and high pressure. So you guys have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning, and we'll continue to feed you guys some updates. God bless.